worked with hundreds, if not thousands of people on mindset, lots of high performers. In your studies, what have you noticed, like data-wise? Are there studies that have changed the way that you thought about how humans think or how top performers think?
How so? Give me a little more context I can go into it. Like, what are you thinking?
Like, is there surprising data or data pieces that you've found about mindset and the human brain, or studies that you found interesting lately that you think are worth sharing?
I think the biggest thing is, like, I like to go into, like, the main thing that I work off is like cognitive behavioral therapy, right? And the thing that I think I've been teaching the most recently that's been like hitting the home the most for people is just basically this idea of like negativity bias, which is like we are wired to be negative. Like that is the way that it works. And so like I don't know any specific data around, you know, like successful people, unsuccessful people. But what I do know is that people inherently are negative. And there's a reason why that exists. The reason why it exists is because, you know, 10,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, when we were going to be attacked by something, we had to be on guard and look for problems. That's all that we did. So your brain is just this problem-solving mechanism. The problem with it now is that modern day, obviously, we're not going to be like attacked by a tiger or anything like that. So our brain is constantly looking for what is wrong, and in turn, it's making problems when problems don't exist. And so the thing that I like to do is, if you have a hammer, you want to find a nail. And so if your brain is a problem-solving tool, then my goal for myself and clients that I work with, especially business owners, is bring problems to figure out every single day. Because your brain wants to do that thing. You know, it's like that's what your brain is designed to do. So people are always like, oh, how do I stop overthinking? I'm like, well, you don't stop overthinking because your brain doesn't stop thinking. Your heart, you don't want your heart to stop because it's made to beat. You don't want your lungs to stop because it's made to breathe. Your brain is made to think. And most of the time, your brain will go towards negative because it's trying to solve a problem. So if you're a business owner, one of the best things you can do is wake up in the morning and say, what are the problems that I want to solve today? And see if there's one problem that you can solve today, and then just give your brain space. Most people, and I found this consistent with myself and so many other people, work too much in their business and not on their business. Like they're so in the day-to-day. Like I've almost completely removed myself from my day-to-day, thank God, because I have a VP of operations who's helped me with that. She's process driven, so we've removed myself, right? And so my job is to wake up in the morning, and she knows we're going to talk about problems in the morning. So we're going to see what are the problems of the day, what are the things that I need to solve for. So if I can solve for X and I'm a visionary and I know I'm a visionary, then I'm going to go, okay, what is this thing? And then I have to give myself space to just solve it. And so the thing that I find with people that I think is the biggest for business owners is like, if your brain's going to go towards the negative, towards trying to solve problems, give it problems to find. Otherwise, what it's going to do is it's going to show up and say, oh, we've got a problem. Like, you know, we didn't get as much revenue as we needed. My business is going to go out of business. What's going to happen? I'm going to end up being homeless. I'm going to have to fire my employees. Oh my God, they've got children and it creates its own version of problems versus going, I'm just going to give my brain the problems that it needs in order to get me where I want to go versus send me off down this like path of doom and gloom, which is what most business people do.
It's interesting because what they say is like, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. It's like your world will get small. I have a family member that I just watch their world get smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. And thus somehow their problems get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And so these little things that happen every single day, you know, they'll call me and say like, oh God, I can't believe the mailman's late today. Mm. And you're like, how in getting fewer problems did your problems get bigger? It's a weird phenomenon.
Right.
But that makes all the sense in the world. It's because you're not feeding the beast. And so the beast will find something to eat.
Of course.
And it will make it a problem that is probably not even there.
Yeah.
And so you get to have like negative projection or negative manifestation, essentially.
Exactly. And one of the things that's big too is don't give it too many problems a day.
How many do you think?
So I read an article like 5 years ago that like changed my perception on my business. And it was about Jeff Bezos, and he only makes 3 decisions a day. And so he will sit down and he'll find problems and he'll make 3 decisions every single day, but they're like billion-dollar decisions. Versus me at that point in time, I was like, I got to do 45 things today. If every single person, and this is like a simple thing to do with your to-do list, right? Especially for business owners. Wake up, you make your to-do list, you figure out exactly what needs to be done for the day, right? Then what you do is you just circle number 1, number 2, and number 3. You take an index card, you write number 1 down, you write number 2 down, you write number 3 down, you throw your to-do list away, burn it, whatever it is you need to do, put that in your back pocket, and then only pay attention to those 3 things. And then just focus on number 1, focus on number 2 after that's done, and focus on number 3. If every single business owner got number 1 done every single day, Monday through Friday, they'd be incredibly successful at the end of this year. But the problem is they work from home, and then they're like, well, I've got to do the laundry. So they do the laundry because they just want to check shit off of their to-do list versus like, I don't want to be busy. Because if you're just checking things off, that's when you get done at the end of the day and you're like, you worked your ass off, you feel like you got nothing done, right? Versus like, I want to be productive. I don't want to be busy. How do you be productive? You cross off number one, the most important thing of your day, then your second thing, and then your third thing, if you get to those. If you never get to 2, don't get to 3, no big deal. As long as you get number 1 done, I think that's what people should focus on.
Brilliant. We often, I think, also want to cross things off the to-do list that are small because it feels good. Like that endorphin response, that little bit of adrenaline that you get every time you check something off. And yet, if you're focusing on the wrong things, who cares? Which is what most people do.
So many people will do something and then add it to the to-do list and cross it off because it feels good to cross it off.
Oh, really?
Oh, all the time I hear people do this. Yes, no joke. People will be like, well, I just did this. It wasn't on my to-do list. I'm going to write it down and cross it off to make it feel like I did something.
Wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
We are weird little hairless apes running around trying to figure life out. I've heard you and also Jordan Peterson say, if you want to have an incredible life, you have to go through a ton of pain. Do you think you have to go through massive pain to learn anything?
I think that you can't really go through life without some sort of pain. But there's also a difference between pain and suffering. So pain is something that happens to you. Suffering is something that happened to you that you continue to bring with you every single day and kind of have it take the energy from you. So my biggest pain was my father passed away when I was 15 from being an alcoholic, and growing up with an alcoholic father and all that comes with it. Would I be where I am now if I didn't have that happen to me? I don't think so, because the reason why I do what I do now is because I went through all the things I went through. And so I found myself in a lot of suffering because of my mindset. And I know that my dad was in a lot of suffering because of his mindset, because his father killed himself when he was 12 years old and he never overcame it. And so I saw like what happened when you don't overcome your pain. And then I also saw like other people in my life that were better examples of like they overcame their pain. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to be the type of person who overcomes it. So then I started working on myself, and as I started working on myself, I got addicted to like, I want to teach this to people. I think that everybody has to go through something hard in order to become better. And so it can be that something that the universe throws all of our crap at us, or it can be that we actually seek out and try to find some suffering. So it's like, there's a principle called applied suffering, where it's like you actually go and try to figure out ways to suffer. And so it could be like going to the gym and like forcing yourself to work out is a form of applied suffering. Doing an ice bath is like a form of applied suffering. And so I think that the main thing that pain really shows us is that pain is a stimulus for change. It's like, it is if I put my hand on a hot stove, it is my body, my brain saying something needs to change, and it needs to change immediately. For some people, a heart attack is that change, something needs to change, something needs to change immediately. A lot of very successful people that I know have been through a lot of shit. And I think there's a lot of reasons why they become successful. A lot of times people are running from something, and so they bury it in being a workaholic. That's what I did. I was working like 110 hours a week to run from my trauma with my dad, which is hard because in society, that's like the only addiction that's actually praised. Oh my God, you're making a bunch of money, you're successful, and everyone's like praising you for it. So I don't think that you have to go through it, but I do find that people who have been through a lot, usually if they end up using it for good, can actually become extremely successful from it.
There is something to this fact that you can either use your pain towards something forward progressing, or you can let it eat you alive.
Yeah.
Do you think that all entrepreneurs are emotionally fucked up in some ways?
No, there might be like one or two that's not, but
I've met one.
But like, I think there's a couple of things. It's like, what I always go back to every single time is like, what's someone's relationship with their parents? And, you know, like I used to always think in my head that in order for someone to have something as they get older that's an issue, the parent had to have screwed them up and been like an alcoholic like my father was, or talked down to them, or said, oh, I'll only love you when you achieve, which is some people where it's like, oh, my dad didn't give me attention unless I won a basketball game, and then I got his love. And so people start learning, oh, I have to achieve in order to be worthy of love. And then my best friend had the exact opposite happen, where he's super driven, super successful, but his parents are still together. They're the most in love people I've ever seen. And I'm like, where did you get fucked up? Like, where did it come from? Like, there's got to be something, right? And what he said was his parents used to always say, everybody loves him. everybody loves him. So when he was a little kid, he would always hear, oh, everybody loves him, because he was a good little kid and he was fun and all that stuff. And he developed this narrative like, everybody has to love me. And then so what he felt to himself is, I have to perform and I have to achieve in order for people to love me. So his parents are like very positively affirming to him, which you think would be a good thing. He turns it into, well, I can't show up to this place unless everybody loves me. So then he stopped going places and he started becoming more of a hermit because of that. And then he felt to himself like, well, everybody loves me, and if everybody has to love me, well, then I need to achieve. So then he developed this feeling within him of like, oh, well then in order for me to be worthy of other people's love, I need to succeed. And then he attached that to money. And so then when he didn't have money, he didn't feel like he was worthy of love. And so there's a whole, I mean, people are very, very complex. Like life is not hard. Business is not hard. All of these things are very simple, but humans, in the way that our world works together, our narrative of ourselves and how it intertwines with everything, we're just extremely complex. So like he's a great example of great childhood, great parents, very positively affirming, but even the positive affirmation ended up, messing him up in some sort of way.
You have a lot that you've talked about when it comes to, I don't think you use the word toxic people, but people that shouldn't be in your sphere. And I've heard you, and I think also Robert Greene, talk about developing a radar to detect these type of people. How do you determine who should be in your sphere, who should not, and who might be sabotaging your success or not?
So I had a friend that categorized them, and he said people basically are either they're batteries or they're vacuums. So they're either batteries where they give you energy, or they're vacuums where they take energy away from you. If you're questioning whether somebody is a battery or a vacuum, they're probably a vacuum. Like if you're questioning it, you're probably, they're teetering on like taking energy from you. And so like a battery is somebody that you're around. Like there's people that I'm around, I'm sure you do it all the time with what you do, where you'll have a conversation and then an hour after they leave, you like still have energy from them being there. Even though all of that spending time with them, you should have less energy because you had speaking and you were walking around and you were doing something together. But they literally, there's like a remnant of them still being there. There's still a lot of energy from that. There's some people that are in people's lives that you talk to for like 3 minutes and you're drained for the rest of the day. And so if you just think about the person and just thinking about them makes you feel drained, they're probably somebody who's a vacuum and they're time suckers, they're time vampires, they're just taking it from you. And so it's hard because a lot of times these people who are vacuums are people's parents, they're their sisters, they're their brothers, they're people they're related to. And you're not just gonna completely get rid of them, but it's like, how do you start to spend less time with them and then replace them with other people who are better for you? I didn't even realize this until I wrote the book, when I was like, all right, changing your environment, who you surround yourself with, it's success. When I first moved to Austin in 2012, the guy that I moved in with already had a massive friends group. And I got here and within like a week, I had all of my best friends and I was raging Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like partying, right? It was awesome. For a couple years, it was great. And then I decided to start my own business. I decided to start the podcast and I was like, I'm going to figure out how to make money online. And I was like, I wonder if there's any like events. And so I Googled it and I found Internet Marketing Party. So I went to Internet Marketing Party and I remember I was sitting there and the first guy I was talking to was a year younger than me and was doing $2 million a year. And I was like, you can make that much money online? Like this is like, I had no idea that this was possible. And then I started meeting other people and then I was like, you know what? I'm meeting these people. They're doing a couple 100,000, they're doing a couple million. And so then I started hanging out with them and then we would work together because being an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur, is like very, you're just alone all the time. And so we would go to each other's houses downtown and we would work together. And then they would have a launch and I would see what their launch was. And I was like, oh my God, you made $100,000 today. I didn't realize you could make $100,000 in a day. And then what started happening was then one of them I became really close with didn't drink. So I started hanging out with him more because he was in my industry and he was at like 5 million a year and I was at like 200,000 that time. And I was like, I'm gonna hang out with him more. And I stopped drinking and I stopped partying and I started waking up earlier. And just by being around this group of people, everything about me changed. And it wasn't like I consciously sat down and was like, I need to change this. It was just that the people that I surrounded myself with were different and I just took on the actual, the way that they were. There's a statistic that found that if you have one friend that you're close to become obese, you have a 38% higher chance of becoming obese because we become the people we spend the most time with. And so if you're trying to change, maybe you should look at the people around you and say like, would I want to trade places with them? And if the answer is no, well then maybe you should spend less time with them and start getting around people who you do want to trade places with.
Those statistics on the rub-off effect of both, let's call fat and fitness and also money are sort of scary when you think about it, because it's the same thing. Like there's another statistic that shows that like if you get a group of 5 people that you spend the most time with and you analyze the bank accounts of those 5 people, on average your bank account will be the same. And so what's interesting is those 5 people don't have to be from your geographic area. They don't have to be where you came up from. They don't even have to work at your company with you. It's just, it appears to be there's some contagion to both success or failure, winning or losing. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what is a negative person? Who is the negative person? Like, and what's the degree that's allowable before you're 50% less happy and 38% fatter and all of this? Do you have a way that you think about, okay, if this happens in this many situations or instances, this is a negative person, or is it the same as the vacuum?
I mean, I think the easiest way, I saw a video on it years ago, is like if you have to question whether that person's truly happy for you when you succeed at something, they're probably not the best person to spend time with. Like if you're hesitant to go tell them about something that you just succeeded with, or you're hesitant to tell them about your dreams because they want to shit on them, they're probably not the most positive person to be around. I loved watching the Olympics because as soon as somebody succeeds, they look into the crowd to find the person that they love the most, right? Like success is not fun when you're by yourself. Like we want people to succeed with and to celebrate with us. And so many people that I have found are not surrounded by anybody. If you're really questioning whether somebody would be happy for you if you brought some sort of win to them, or they would question, your dreams, then they're probably someone who's not really looking out for your best interest.
I used to believe sort of a little bit like, hey, if somebody's saying that everybody around them sucks, what's likely? You might suck.
Yeah.
That might be a you thing.
Yeah. It's like the phrase where if you wake up and you meet an asshole, you just met an asshole. But if you meet assholes all day long, you're the asshole. So
it's true.
Maybe you're the negative person.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
But I think that in this case, it can be hard if you're really a builder and you're not around builders. Not everybody gets that game.
Yeah.
You also talked a lot about habits of successful people and that some of them are replicable. What do you think that successful people do every day that other people don't?
Boring shit. I love all of the habits that people are putting online and the whole mindset shifts and habits of successful people and all of that. I do love it. I even said, I think cold plunging is great, meditating is great, and all of those things. Those are all good and they help. But I think the most important thing that I have found from the most successful people is they are the type of person that follows through. They are true to their word. And they will follow through and do what they say they're going to do. I think that is probably the biggest key to the most successful people I've found, is that they follow through and they're extremely consistent of doing it day in, day out. It's so funny to me, I've now been an entrepreneur for 19 years. I'm 38, so it's been half of my life. And people started let's be entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur is waking up and deciding to be punched in the face every day. That's literally what it is. It's just a challenge and a new challenge and a new challenge. It's fun for some of us. I think it's the most fun thing ever. I get to wake up and play a game every single day. But I think that a lot of people, they cannot stay consistent with that. And so I think that the two biggest things that I find is they follow through and they're just consistent. And that's what it comes down to. And I remember when I was researching a lot of stuff for my book on willpower and how do you get yourself to follow through and take action. And I started researching some of the most successful people and how they became so consistent. And what I found was that they are not the type of person who just has hardcore willpower. It's that they design an environment where their willpower isn't tested. And so for instance, for me, I don't have any social media on my phone anymore because I noticed that I would pick it up and I'd immediately just somehow be on Instagram. It was a reactionary thing. And so for the past 6 months, I haven't had Instagram on my phone. And so I've never had TikTok on my phone, which is, I've got 600,000 followers on TikTok. I've never had it, right? So it's the way I do it is I design my environment where I cannot be tested by this thing. So My team will come to my house, we record the stuff, my editor will take it, give it to my social media team. Every Monday we meet and we just see how everything's looking. Like just look at the numbers as if it's anything else in a business, right? Just part of marketing. So that doesn't test my willpower. And so then if I don't have that, well then there's less things to distract me. And if there's less things to distract me, well then for me it's like, okay, well then what do I want to spend my time doing? Oh, this thing that I need to get done today. And so I think if you can, even if it's somebody who like, you know, wants to lose weight, if you design an environment where your willpower doesn't get tested, it makes it so much easier. If you get rid of all of the shitty food, you get rid of all of the sugars, and you get rid of all of the stuff, and you just have stuff that is in your house, and you just have, you know, fruit that's out on the table instead, your willpower won't be tested. So I think if somebody can design an environment where their willpower won't be tested, it makes it easier to be consistent. And then at the same time, just develop this like deep sense of when I say I'm going to do something, I absolutely 100% I'm going to do it. And the last thing I'll say around that, I figured this out when I was young. When I had my first office open, it drove me crazy that I would have all of these kids with so much potential come through. Because, you know, I trained by the time I was 24, I trained 2,000 sales reps. And I hated when they would say, oh, I'm going to come into the office, I'm going to make 100 phone calls. And then 2 hours later, they'd be at like 7. And so I printed out this huge flyer, like this huge thing. It just, when you walked out of my door, it said follow through. Because just so many people don't do what they say they're going to do. So if people can have the integrity to just be consistent and then just to do what they say they're going to do, I think that's probably the 2 biggest keys I can think of for success.
Do you remember when you first noticed that rich people did this thing, follow through? Like, do you remember watching somebody and saying, oh, look, they do it this way, I should mimic that?
Yeah, so my father, I told you the story, you know, he was an alcoholic, passed away when I was 15, and I was very lucky, like very, very lucky. The same way where I said, like, if I didn't have my Uncle Dan in my life, I probably wouldn't know what success looked like. And so I had a little bit of that language that I already knew because I saw Dan. And so Dan, he's retired now, but he was like my first mentor by proxy, kind of. So he's my uncle, he's my mom's sister's husband. And when I was a kid, he had a glass company, he had like 200 employees, he did like 20 million a year. And he was the type of person who just followed through. Like he was so often, like in society, people who don't have money and don't have success like to demonize people who have success as if you have to like screw people over to make money. There's this whole thing of like, you have to screw people over, or in order for you to win, somebody else has to have lost. And my uncle was always this person where if anybody ever needed anything, he was always there for them. And if anybody needed money, he would always give it to them. He never asked for it back. He would always be the person that was there. And so I always saw this guy. The good thing was that his grandson, which is my second cousin, was 6 days younger than me. So I was always around them because he would have me come on vacation stuff. And I would see him wake up before anybody else would and get his coffee and go to work and show up and be consistent. So like from a very young age, I was like, I just have to show up and work hard. I just have to show up and work hard. And he was very consistent in the way that he did it. And once I saw, okay, if I go this route, I can be like my dad. Or if I go this route, I can be like Uncle Dan. As soon as I got the first opportunity to put any work into anything and I got into a sales position, I was like, what did Dan do? He worked his ass off. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna work my ass off. And so I think that's the first person I really realized taught me just by being around him. He never ever told me work hard or go for money or try to be successful, any of that stuff. I just saw by the type of person that he was that that's what I wanted to be.
Yeah, it's almost like you had a rich dad, poor dad.
That's 100% what I had. I've never even thought about it. That's exactly what I had. I had the rich dad, poor dad situation.
Yeah, and you were able to actually see between the two. Because a lot of times, I had a famous mentor of mine that used to say, nothing is good or bad, it's only good or bad by comparison. And so if all you've ever known was your dad, who lived a certain type of life, but that was your father, you might not have known that it was actually bad. And so being able to juxtapose two humans is actually kind of a beautiful blessing.
100%.
Yeah, and I think also, sometimes it's hard for all of us to learn what not to do just by seeing it. We have to also see what should we do?
Sure.
And what are the repercussions of outcomes? I love that. One other thing you've talked about that I really liked is talking about the importance of a partner and who you pick in a relationship, and how psychological stability in a partner is incredibly important. So You know, these days we're marrying later than ever. We're having less sex. We're having less relationships. We're not jumping so easily into partnership.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's fear or, you know, searching or what the case is. But when it comes to picking a partner, what do you think is the most important?
I think the highest version of a relationship is somebody who doesn't try to change you, and somebody who is there for you to work through your own shit. So I'll explain this because I have a story behind it. So my wife, we've been together for, next month will be 11 years we've been together. And we were talking about somebody that we know, and she's married, but doesn't really want to be married to this guy. And she hasn't wanted to be married for a while, but she feels bad. So there's this whole thing, we're talking about it. And she said, yeah, but she loves him. And I was like, okay, but is she in love with him? And she's like, well, I don't know. Like, what do you consider being in love? Well, actually, first what she did was she asked me the most woman question ever. She goes, well, are you in love with me? And I was like, she's like,
would you love me if I'm a worm?
Yeah, she's like, how do you know? And I was like, oh God, now I got to figure this out. So I was like, I think the highest version of a relationship is somebody who is there for you, that will support you through anything, but has not tried to stunt your growth. A lot of people are like, I married you because you were this person, be this person forever.
Yes.
Like a lot of people are like that. In self-development, which is what I'm in, a lot of people will get into personal development when they weren't before, and then their partner will just talk trash about trying to become better. Because their partner feels triggered like, oh, well, if she outgrows me, then she's gonna leave me. So unconsciously, they start talking trash about wanting to grow because I don't want her to leave me. And so I think that we all have our baggage and we all have our traumas and we all have things we need to work through. And I think that the highest version of a relationship is somebody that makes you feel like you're in such a safe space that I can come to you with all of my stuff. You won't judge me for any of it, but you'll help me work through it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing that I've learned the most from my relationship with my wife is that I've never brought any of my baggage or trauma to talk about with her, and ever felt like she came back to me like, oh, well, you're not man enough, why you bring this to me? Or, you know, you should figure this out on your own, or whatever it might be. It was just like a safe space to be. And me, where I just happen to be a very driven, competitive, hardworking person, she never tried to change that in me, which is what was great. And so I think that she just kind of like, it's about picking the partner that you will support you to be what you want to be. And so for me, it was like, she was that person. I was able to be who I needed to be in order to grow. And I never felt like, oh, well, if this business is successful, then she's going to leave me or anything like that. So I think that's, in my opinion, it's kind of like, you know, what's the point of a gardener? The gardener is supposed to plant the seed and give it water and give it space and give it sun so that it grows, the flower grows into its most potential that it can. And that's kind of the same way being in a relationship is like, I'm in a relationship with her. It is my job to create a safe space where she can grow to her potential, but not me try to force what she should be doing in her life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Did you know that about her right away?
No. The thing that I knew about her is that she had a much deeper capacity to love than I did. Not because I wasn't born with that capacity, it's because I actually shut that part of me down based off of my childhood. And so I remember we went to we had a friend that was in town. I met him at a poker tournament. He's a relationship therapist. And he's like, you and your girlfriend should come by and just like check it out. I was like, okay, like not knowing anything. Like I was like, well, just come and talk to this guy. Cool, that'd be awesome. And he was the first time I ever had somebody, he goes, yeah, you were neglected as a child. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you were neglected. I was like, well, no, like I had food and water and like I never lived on the street. He's like, no, you were emotionally neglected. And he goes, Lauren, and you know, he gave us all our assignments. He goes, Lauren, your job is you understand love deeper than he does, because it's like a room he's never walked into. So your job is to kind of lead him and show him what love can be, and realize that he might get triggered in some sort of way because he feels unsafe because he's never felt it before. It's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of him. And if you just stay in that state of love, he will eventually kind of melt into it, I guess you could say. And so I didn't know it at all.
So
but
do you feel like you are able to love more? Did that work?
Oh, 100%. Well, there's a lot of things that I've worked on in the past few years. Like I said, like psychedelics helped and meditation helped and, you know, having a baby helped. And so there's a lot of things that have
Plus,
helped over
young
time.
Rob probably wouldn't have talked about like trauma and
No.
neglect, and you're probably like, whatever.
No.
I'm working
I was
on
like,
shit.
I'm
Fine.
I'm trying to build a business.
Yeah.
That's what it came down to more than anything else, right?
Yeah,
Like
which is super normal for people like you and I. We're
Sure.
like, yeah, trauma, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm working on this thing.
Over the past like probably 3 years, I've realized this is I got into self-development because I wanted to be successful. I wanted to make money. That was like the thing. When I was 19 and I realized I'm in a sales position, I can make money. That was like my number one focus for a really, really long time. And so I got into self-development because I was like, let me add stuff to me. Let me get better. Let me get smarter. And so it was like this idea of like, I will succeed more the more that I add to myself. And what I realized is that the real true version of self-development is actually subtraction, not addition. So like there's certain aspects of myself I need to get rid of, or I need to let go of, or not let run the show all of the time. And so for me, it's actually been a whole lot of doing less and removing aspects of myself that I'm not necessarily the most in love with.
Okay, real quick, let me cut to the chase. Your content deserves better. Better quality, better tools, and a lot less wasted time, which is also better. That's where Riverside crushes it for us. Hopefully you see that by listening to this podcast. So whether you're interviewing, podcasting, social clips, this platform is my secret weapon for getting high quality video ready to post fast as possible. 4K video? Yep. AI powered editing? Double check. It's not just about recording, it's about getting to the finish line faster. So transcripts that clean up your mistakes, AI magic clips that pick themselves, and editing tools that make even amateurs look polished. Riverside has it all. You can even toss in footage you recorded outside of the app and still unlock those killer features to edit your footage. The truth is, time is money, and Riverside is the kind of investment that we think pays for itself. So try it for free. Links in the description. You know, when I get a deal, you get a deal. So use code CODY at checkout for a discount on any paid plan. All right, let's get back into it. When you've worked with people who are poor or people who are not performing in their lives, what do you typically see that they do?
Usually nothing. I mean, they're not sharing a whole lot. I mean, it comes down to like, the way I think about it is this, is like, it's not, when I said like life is not that hard, success is not that hard, it's quite simple. We make it difficult, is like, if I said, you know, this door's closed and on the other side of this there's $1 million, you just got to open the door. What do you have to do? Just get your ass up and go open the door, right? Like that's all you have to do. But if you sit there and you're like, well, I don't know, but what if I break my ankle on the way over? And it's just like, life is not that hard. You just have to take the actions that you need to do in order to solve. If you're trying to solve for X, what do you need to do to get to X? Okay, I need to take this action to do so. I don't know if my podcast would exist if people just took action. Like when I wrote my book, I was like, what the fuck do I talk about? Like if I zoom out, I have 1,600 podcast episodes, right? What do I talk about? And it's almost all of it is like mindset tricks and understanding yourself in psychological ways to understand yourself more so that you can actually do what you need to do to create the life you want.
Why do you think most people don't achieve their goals?
Because I don't think they actually care enough. Like, so my very first mentor used to always say to me, he would always say, if your why is strong enough, your how will reveal itself. And so what he always meant by that is that whenever you set a goal towards something, you need to figure out what the why is behind it. Like, why do you actually want to do it? I think the other thing that really holds a lot of people back is who they think they are. You know, it's like, I have a friend that has become pretty successful, and he grew up really, really poor in the ghetto. And he said, basically, when you grow up really poor and you see people that are successful, make a lot of money, it's like a different language. Like, you just don't speak that language. And so when you grow up, and a lot of people think, well, oh, I have an alcoholic father, so I can't be successful. My mom said I was worthless, or, you know, this person broke my heart because I'm unlovable. And so they have this identity of who they think they are. And when you have an identity of who you think you are, you always take actions that line up with that identity. And so one of the biggest reasons why people don't hit their goals is because they're not taking the action towards their goals, because they don't actually think that they're the type of person that can do it. And so one of the biggest things I think people can do is actually shift the identity of who they think they are, which sounds near impossible. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'm Rob, I've always been Rob. Oh, I'm Cody, I've always been Cody. Like, it's like, but you have to understand, like, who you think you are is literally a character you're just waking up and deciding to play every single day. Like I was literally thinking about this today, earlier this morning. I had Matthew McConaughey on my podcast like 4 years ago, right? And I was like, I wonder if that's actually how he is. Like, is he actually that guy? Like, is he actually that cool? Or is he just such a good actor that when the camera turns on, whenever he's on an interview, that he is just, you know, turns that character on? And I like 5 minutes before we started, and I was like, oh my God, he's that guy. But then I realized, like, what if one day he just woke up and was like, I want to be this character. He decided to be that character, and now that character is loved by everybody. And so it's like the phrase Alan Watts says, where he says, you're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. Like, somebody can wake up and just decide to be somebody different tomorrow. Like, I wore a black shirt today. I can wear a white one tomorrow. So it's like, imagine just if you're a really shy person, you're not good in sales, but you have this company and you've got to get like sales going, that you just wake up today and you're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to be really outgoing today and just see what it happens. And if it works for your business, maybe you're like, you know what? I'm going to take that. I'm going to try to become a little bit more outgoing. And so I think there are two reasons why is because they don't have a purpose, like a why behind why they want to go for the goal. And the second thing is they actually don't think that they can be the type of person that does it, but their identity is literally just as thin as a character that anybody plays on TV. Another big piece of it is the fears. And so like with the identities, like their self-limiting beliefs, what they think of themselves. The fears is like what they're fearing, what pain they're anticipating in the future. And the third thing is like they just don't have a purpose behind it. They don't have a why that's driving them towards it. And so it's not really that hard. It's just that most people are deciding to, you know, be addicted to their phones. They're not deciding a lot of times. They're just unconsciously addicted to their phones. They're unconsciously addicted to, you know, eating this trashy food. They're unconsciously addicted to watching Netflix. They're addicted to, you know, sleeping in. And most people will choose the easy route. Like that is what we do, is we choose easy. And it's like the only time that somebody will really make a change in their life is when the pain of staying the same is more painful than the pain of change. And if they just understand that, like you just have to look at your life, fast forward at 10 years and think, well, if I'm in the exact same position right now in 10 years, am I gonna be happy with myself? Is it gonna be worse? First mentor used to always say either green and growing or brown and dying. You're either getting better, like there's no such thing as staying in the same place. If you're in the same place 10 years from now, you're worse than you were today. And so it's like you have to understand that staying the same has to become more painful than the change that you have to put in, because like it's really like my true belief that life is either hard now and easy later, or it's easy now and hard later. In time will always catch up with you. Like time is the greatest equalizer, and it is either your best friend or it's your worst enemy. It's your best friend if you do the hard stuff now. It is your worst enemy if you're choosing an easier life now.
You've also talked a lot about brain chemistry and how understanding your brain chemistry has made you able to take more action.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
So, yeah, I love to talk about it. So I'm really into like this incredible machine that we're given, but we have no idea how to use. Like we're born with the most complex piece of machinery in the entire world, but we have no manual of how to use it. So I'm always like, how can I figure out how this thing works so that therefore I can use it to my benefit? And so like the thing that I think is the most interesting and like that really drives me, even literally today, and I'm not even kidding you, if you've ever sat down and created a course or created a book or something, the very first thing that hits you is like, oh, fuck. I'm like, dude, I've got so much to do before the end of the year, and I'm just thinking this in my head, right? And so I'm thinking that in my head, and I'm like, I just have to start. And the reason why I know I have to start is because, so when your brain, when you sit down and you're like, I'm gonna do something different, when your brain is getting ready to focus, it releases two things. It releases acetylcholine and it releases epinephrine. And so those two things, acetylcholine and epinephrine, are what make you start to focus in on something. The problem with that is that acetylcholine and epinephrine actually come from the parts of the brain that feel like anxiety. And so if we're about to do something and we're about to feel more focused, the feeling up of warming up in our brain should actually make you feel anxious, because it's your brain starting to warm up for focus that's about to happen. And so I know that it takes on average about 6 minutes for a brain to warm up, right? So it's like if you go into a gym, like my trainer came over today, like I didn't go and like start pulling 100 pounds immediately. Like I had to do stretches first, and I had to do the movement first, and we had to do all the crazy stuff that he likes to do. And then we could go and I could actually work on the 100-pound kettlebell, right? Because I needed to warm up. It's the exact same thing where like your brain, when it's about to focus, it's got to go through this little bit of a warm-up phase. The thing that's really interesting though is that warm-up phase feels like stress and anxiety because it comes from that part of the brain. So when I sat down today, I was immediately flooded with like the stress and anxiety of like how big of a task this is for me to do. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, but it's almost the end of the year, and we've got Thanksgiving coming up, and I've got Christmas coming up, and I've got to go home for Christmas. Oh my God, am I going to get? And so it's like all of this is happening, and I had to be like, hold on, take a step back. You're feeling this way because your brain's about to focus. You know that your brain's about to focus. So all you have to do is fight through on average the first 6 minutes. And that's it. And you fight through those 6 minutes and your brain will actually start to become more focused. That's one of the most interesting things that I think is when we feel stress and anxiety, we think that it's, oh, I need to back away. But really what it is, this feeling of like, oh, I should actually lean in because neurologically it's my brain warming up to focus so that I can get this task done.
Is this a rule that you have, the 6-minute rule?
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't let myself stop. But
this is a good, you should name and frame this thing. Is this something you
probably
talk
should, right?
about on the internet? Yeah, I've never, because you're right. Every time I go and sit down to write in particular, I get distracted or I get annoyed or I get a little twitchy or I kind of got to fidget around for a little bit and I fiddle fuck my way through those first 6 minutes until finally somehow I relax.
Right.
But if you know the thing that's coming, then the expectation is so much easier once it hits. But often I don't think about it that way. So I think that's really good. You gotta trademark that.
You're gonna have to try it out and then text me and let me know. Okay,
yeah, I'll put a little
6
timer.
minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and then just as soon as you get past it, you'll realize that you kind of like get into flow state and you kind of forget about the stress and anxiety and like you're into it now, and then you end up being done eventually. You're like, oh my God, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
It's interesting because when you work out, you always anticipate, well, you have a 5 or 10 minute warm up.
Right.
Like that's just, you're not going to go in there and sprint right away, especially at our age. You're going to chill a little bit. You're going to warm up, you're going to stretch out. And if you did the same thing with creative work, would that not be the same? And then you could decrease that writer's block, that stress, that I can't do this.
Yes.
Which is fascinating.
Isn't it?
The other thing that you talk about a lot is the dopamine reward system and how you can use it to create better habits in your life.
Yeah.
How can somebody use dopamine to make their life better or to make habits in their life easier?
Yeah, so dopamine usually gets put together with serotonin. So there's serotonin, dopamine. Everyone's always like, oh, those are the feel-good chemicals. Serotonin is the gratitude, you feel good. Like if you're ever done with work and you're like, man, you're looking at your husband, you're like, I love him so much. Oh my God, I'm so happy I have this business. That's serotonin that's going through your brain. That's not dopamine, right? So it's the here and now, I feel good in this moment chemical. Dopamine, on the other hand, if you look at most of the chemicals that are extremely addictive, like cocaine, crack, all of those, they are usually high dopamine chemicals, like those drugs. When you do cocaine, usually your dopamine goes up by about 250%.
Jesus.
So it just raises like crazy. So then when it's gone, your brain wants it again. And so it's very addictive in the sense of we want to find things that are going to give us dopamine. The really interesting thing about dopamine, though, is dopamine is 100% subjective as well. And so what I mean by that is that you can basically make your brain release dopamine whenever you want to. And so this is how you use it. So most people, whenever they go for a habit, like for instance, let's say it's a long day that they have and they go for a glass of wine. That glass of wine makes them feel good and they're going to want to do it again. They naturally want to go towards that. That's their body, that's the dopamine of being able, I wanted this thing, I've got this thing, now I feel good. But then after you're done with that glass of wine, what happens? Oh my God, I want another glass of wine. And so it usually ends up going that way. So whenever you sit to yourself and you're like, okay, I want to do this task, how can I make like I've always thought to myself, like, how can I make myself addicted to taking the action I need to create the life that I want, right? Like if like for instance, people are always like, how have you done 1,600 podcast episodes? I accidentally created a dopamine reward system in myself. And so this is basically how it works, okay? You can literally get done with something. So whenever I get done with a podcast, every time what I do is I change my shirt because I want to make it look like it's a different day. You know, like content days, right? You just got to change your shirt.
Yep.
So I would change my shirt. And because I get jazzed up about creating content, I'm like, I love what I do. I did this thing where every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like you're killing it. This is amazing. What I didn't realize is that I was then creating a dopamine reward system where my body was releasing dopamine, which is what it's signaling to my brain and body is that what you just did release dopamine, do it again. So I just took the action that I needed to in order to make myself be more successful. I celebrated it, and that celebration released dopamine, which then said my brain and body that creating the episode is something you should do again.
Levi, are we going to start doing this?
You guys should have a dance party at the end of every single episode, whenever you get done with the reels. And so what's happening is you're actually teaching your brain to be addicted to this thing. So like another example, let's say like somebody wants to go to the gym, right? Most people, and I was this way for a really long time, do not celebrate themselves until they hit the goal. The problem with that is that you might not hit the goal for a month, for 2 months, for 12, if it's a year-long goal. If you're gonna lose 30 pounds in 2025, and you won't be happy until you get to that 30 pounds being lost, you are not giving your brain dopamine, which means that it's not going to like the process. Because what do most people do? This is what most people do, according to what I hear from people, right? They go to the gym, they come back, they take a shower, they see their naked body in the mirror, and they're like, oh, you still look fucking fat, right? And then they talk shit to themselves when they just got the thing done what they wanted to do. So they're actually saying to their brain, without them realizing it, the thing that you just did was not something that you enjoy, it's not good for you, right? Versus you go to the gym, as soon as you walk in the gym, talk to yourself. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you did this. You're doing this. This is amazing. You get done with your first set. You look yourself in the mirror. You don't say it out loud unless you're, have a home gym if you want to. Otherwise, people are going to think you're crazy, right? People are going to like take their cameras and go towards you after. Yeah, you sexy bitch. You look amazing, right? But it's like you talk to yourself in your head after every single set that you have, and then makes you more likely to show up the next day because it feels good because your brain is subjectively releases dopamine throughout the entire process. So then you actually start becoming addicted to the process because your brain says, oh, when I do this, I get dopamine. When I do this, I get dopamine. Okay, I want dopamine, so I want to do this. They've actually found that for people, if you have a small piece of chocolate, because chocolate releases dopamine as well, if you have a small piece of chocolate after working out, you're more likely to show up the next day to work out again. Not like an entire candy bar, right?
I love this for me.
So it's like a tiny little piece, right? So it'll just release a little bit. It's like giving yourself the prize that's saying what you're doing is good, you're on the right path. And so I always say, like, most people have results-based goals, which is like when I lose those 30 pounds. What I want to celebrate is I want to create is action-based goals. What's the action that I need to do in order to get to this place? And when I get done with the action, I celebrate myself, which means I'm more likely to do the action again. And if I just keep showing up and I'm consistent with it, like we spoke about earlier, eventually I'll just end up at the result that I wanted in the first place.
That's great. Yeah, when I go to the gym, why I like arms is because when I'm, getting
like
my little pump in, I'm looking at them. I'm like, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
That appears to be a vein.
Yeah.
And it's an immediate feedback loop because there's a mirror in front of me. Whereas legs, I have my leggings on, I can't really see what's happening there. No reward.
No.
So I got to start going in shorts or something.
It's these little tricks.
Flexing.
Like, it's just like, how can I just make the life I want, and taking the action to do it easier is all I really want to focus on for people.
Yeah. What's interesting too is, so right now I have a family member who is trying to get a job. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I was talking to him last night and he's like, man, it's just a really tough process. Like, it's not fun and it's a little lonely and I'm a little sad about it. Mm. And my response was, that seems reasonable because it sucks until finally it doesn't, but then you're done. Yeah. And there's really no positive feedback loop whatsoever. Sure. It's all negative feedback loops until you're done, except if you do it your way. Mm-hmm. If instead you say, all right, I don't have a job right now. I want a job. So every single day, what am I going to do? I'm going to reach out to 10 different companies. I'm going to individually ping 10 different people. I'm going to pick up the phone and try to schedule a breakfast or walk or something with 3 people I don't know each day. And if I do that every day, just the action, I'll check a box. I'll have a run. I'll have a glass of wine. Yeah. And I bet he'd feel a lot better if he did that.
I had when I was back in the Cutco days, my first manager, I don't think he knew a dopamine reward system, but he basically kind of left little trails, kind of like E.T. when you like to put the Reese's Pieces, and like he would come and go from one to another.
I like that. That's a millennial throwback right there.
Right. So this is what he had us do, is we would come in and we'd do these things called phone jams, and we would make 100 phone calls, right? 100 cold calls. These people do not expect me to call them, all of it. And he's like, what's your favorite?
Knives too. Right? That's a brutal job.
That's super brutal, right? Imagine training people. I trained 2,000 people to do
That's nuts.
Right? It's a wild thing. My wife, we have a joke because she ghosted me for a little while, but she never told me no. And so I'm just like, I'm a salesperson, so I just kept following up. Like, I was just used to follow up. And then eventually she's like, all right, fine, let's go on a date. Put her in your calendar. You're like she says she went on the first date with me because she was like, he's nice, but she wanted to be single at the time. So she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go on a date with him just to prove to myself that I don't like him. And then she went on the first date with me and she's like, shit, I like this guy. And then from there, we started dating and it went well. So, I don't know what we were talking about before that, but yes,
Well, you were talking about your boss, when you were younger, created a dopamine reward system by accident for your 100 call days.
So he would say, what's your favorite candy? And I was like, Skittles. He goes, okay. when you come in on Thursday, I'll bring a bag of Skittles with me. And what he would do is we would have this piece of paper and it had 1 to 100 on the piece of paper. So there's 10 lines, then it was 10 lines, there's 10 of them, right? And so at the end of number 10, as soon as I crossed off 10, there were 3 Skittles. At the end of 20, there were 3 Skittles, all the way down. And then I could finish the bag of Skittles when I finished 100 calls, which is like, I'm trying to get myself to this thing, these 10 calls, which are just brutal to call people who don't expect you to call. And then you get 3 Skittles. So I'm like, oh, I want to get to the Skittles.
The Skittles were enough?
Yeah, they were enough.
Was it just
19-year-old college kid? I didn't want to spend $4 on it. Yeah.
Or was monetary?
Well, it was probably both. I think it's probably Skittles more than anything else.
Yeah,
that's what
I think if I tried Skittles with my employees here, they'd tell me to fucking go.
I don't think
is that going to work, Levi? He might work actually. Maybe I'm underestimating. Okay.
And so like for me, that drove me to go take the calls. And so I think it's just that little thing of like, how can I have like a little bit of like the prize at the end of doing the thing I want to do, right? Instead of, and that's for today, not like when I hit my goal in 3 months. It's like, what do I need to do today? Because most of the time what we do is we do the thing in our business that we need to do, and there's no revenue coming in today from what we just did. And we're like, damn it, like I'm still so far, like I've got to figure out how to pay the damn bills, versus being like, I did what I needed to do to get me one step further. I'm going to celebrate that thing, which is the difference between like action-based goals, which is taking the action, versus only celebrating on results-based goals.
What else you're reminding me of is how little we actually need to get motivated.
Oh yeah.
You know, because you think about like Robinhood or E-Trade, they literally addict us to stock trading because of confetti that pops up and a bright button and a little noise.
Yeah.
And so, but we don't play that game with ourselves enough. And we think that we need to do this intense, huge reward at the end, which is often what I think about. I'm like, well, when I do this, I'll
buy a watch or something like that.
Big, huge end game. But actually, it's really killing us because we're not doing it every step of the way.
Exactly.
That's such a little thing that I've
You're
even
delaying
forgotten.
dopamine is what you're doing, which is what you're actually trying to go for.
How does this work in practice? So let's say that somebody's listening right now and they're not where they want to be in their career. You know, they're like, man, life hasn't worked out exactly like I wanted it to. I wish that I had more money. I wish I was where I wanted to be today. How do you get them down the rabbit hole all the way to the truth? Because I think a lot of them probably stop really high. They're like, I want to be richer. I want more money. I want to be successful.
Yeah.
But what are the questions you keep asking to get them to that deep, dark place?
Well, so there's a thing that I found years ago. It's called the 7 levels of why. And it's literally, okay, you want to do X, Y, Z. Why do you want to do that? And you come up with a whole reason why you want to do it. And you say, why do you want to do that? You come up with a whole reason. If you go 7 levels why, usually people start to actually tell you the truth and get through their own BS. I think the problem is that a lot of people are very surface level nowadays. Like we're very surface level with ourselves. We're very surface level with other people. Like people don't really know themselves. Like they think that they do. And then they start to work on themselves and they start to work with a journal and they meditate and whatever it is. And they actually start to figure themselves out more. And I think the biggest piece is that if you just sit down and ask, why do I want this? 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 Either you're just going to be lying to yourself or you're going to start to unravel some pieces. And what I think is really important is like the way that I always talk about journaling and how you want to do this is if why's not hitting with you, go a level deeper by saying who, what, why, when, or how. So it's who, what, why, when, how. It's not just why, but it's like, okay, let's say I want to, you know, make $500,000. Why do I want to make $500,000? Because I've never made that much before. All right, I'm not getting something there. Who? Okay, if I use who, whose life will be impacted if I make $500,000? My children. Okay, who, what, why, when, how. Let me try another one. How's that going to change your life? How's that going to change your education? What opportunities will become available for them if I make more money and we live in a better part of town, right? It's like, could their education, I mean, we live in America, it's a shitty fact, but if you live in a better part of town, your children get a better education. I had inside of my book, I wrote a story of one of my very first clients that I worked with one-on-one, and his goal was to make $100,000 a year. Like he's like, I want to make $100,000 a year. And I was like, okay, why? He's like, because I've never done it before. I was like, okay, tell me why. And we went deeper and deeper and deeper, and we ended up finding out the reason why he wanted to do it was because he had just gotten a divorce. He lived just outside of New York in a really bad part of town. His wife lived in a worse part of town, ex-wife, worst part of town. And we ended up finding out that his biggest fear was that, and this had to be like watered down for the book because the publisher didn't want this exact story, But his biggest fear was that his daughter would get pregnant by 13 and his son would be murdered in a drive-by. And so that ended up being his reason for wanting to get to $100,000 a year. And so instead of saying I want to make $100,000 a year because I've never done it before, it now became I want to make $100,000 in a year so that I could put a down payment on a house, so I could take my children, I can put them into a better part of town, they can get a better education and have their lives completely changed because I decided to work harder towards it. So if you start thinking this way, and like who, what, why, when, how, you can start going deep with yourself and you realize if you can take it from just yourself and start putting children and start putting your family into it and your spouse into it, your mother, father, usually you'll start to find that the reason ultimately why you want to do something is how it's going to make you feel and how it's going to impact the people who you love. And if you can realize that and start to work through those lenses, which is like, oh, so hold on. I want to grow this business. Why do I want to grow this business? I want to grow this business because I want to make money, because I want to buy a Ferrari, whatever it is that people want, right? And then you start asking yourself, well, how's that going to impact my children's life? I mean, let's just be real. If you're able to give more opportunities to your children, they're probably going to end up having a better life. And one of the pieces that's an important part of it that I want to say though, and we haven't spoke on, is there's this misconception, because I think people do it wrong. There's this misconception that if I want to be a really successful business owner, I have to have a terrible relationship with my children, or I have to like spend less time with my children, right? Like that happens a lot where people like I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I want to be a successful business owner, but I don't want to spend less time with my children. I'm like, who the fuck said that you had to spend less time with your children? Like, yeah. Right? So it's like, the thing is like, I think that's an old paradigm of like, if I want to be successful, then my relationship with my wife needs to, hurt because of that. I don't get to see my children as much because of that. That is like a scarcity mindset. And scarcity is or. Like, so it's like, it's either this or it's this. It's either this or it's this. That's scarcity. Abundance is and, which is how do I make a very successful business and spend more time with my children? Like that's an and. And so what you realize is that at this moment I might not know, but I need to evolve myself. I need to evolve. There's either a skill set that I need to learn or there's knowledge that I need to learn in order to be able to delegate to my team members how to hire better, how to delegate better, so that I can spend more time with my family. Like my overall goal of becoming a successful business owner was to make a bunch of money, but also to be a present father because my father was never present with me. And so the cool thing about it is I've set my business up where I need to show up at certain points, but I'm not necessary all the time. So I can spend more time with my son and can spend more time with my wife. And we can disappear and go travel for 3 weeks and only do 2 check-in calls to make sure the business is still running. And so it's not that that in order to have a successful business or be successful or make a bunch of money or impact people, that other people have to suffer because of that you love. It's not a or problem, it's really just a how do I become better problem. How do you become better? I have a sign that's on my desk and it just says be better. And that's it. And it's not like me being an asshole to myself, it's me just going, okay, I've got this thing I've got to solve for my business. It's stressing me out because I don't know what the answer is. And I look at it, I'm like, be better. Okay, there's a more expansive version, there's a more evolved version of Rob that knows how to solve this problem. There's knowledge I need to get or there's skill set I need to get in order to solve this. That's all I need to figure out. And so, yeah, I think if people just focus on if I just need to be better, then I can figure out a way to, have this reality and that reality and that reality all live together and not have to live in scarcity. Speaking of being better, what about when you're working with somebody who's really resistant to change? Mm-hmm. Do you have a process where you can just shake somebody out of ruining their life? Yeah, I mean, the thing I like to think about is like what the future could be if somebody doesn't change, And so it's like, if we go back to the whole idea of like, the only time somebody will make a change is when the pain of staying the same is more painful than the pain of change. Like I had a guy one time that came up to me after a speech that I gave like 5 years ago. And he was pretty overweight. And he's like, Rob, I want to lose weight. I don't know how to lose weight. What should I do? And I was like, okay, well, tell me about it. What have you tried? I was like, what's your fear that if you don't lose weight? He's like, well, I'm just afraid that like, I won't be healthy later on in life. I'm like, okay, that's not really good. Like, what are you actually afraid of? And after talking to this guy for a few minutes, I was like, okay, what's your biggest fear? If you don't lose the weight that you want to lose, what's your biggest fear is going to happen? He goes, my biggest fear His daughter was like 10 at the time. He goes, my biggest fear is that I won't be around to walk my daughter down the aisle. And I was like, that's it. I was like, okay, so walk through this with me real quick. Let's say, say his name's John. John, let's say that you decide not to change. You decide not to lose weight. You decide not to eat healthier. You decide not to go to the gym, walk, do all the things that you know you should do. And you're fully capable of doing right now. And we fast forward, let's say we fast forward 15 years. Your daughter's 25 years old. And because of the fact that you didn't take the action that you needed to, you end up passing away from a heart attack. And as your daughter's walking down the aisle by herself, when you should be there with her, she sees her husband that's up in front, and over to the left side, which is always the bride's side, on the left corner, there is your suit that's folded up in the corner. And she has to see your suit folded up on the first chair instead of you actually being in that suit and walking around the aisle. What does that feel like to you? And he was like bawling, and he's like, that's like he was just thinking about that, right? And it was a physical feeling, like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this moment again. And he's like, I don't know how I could live with myself knowing that that is a possibility. And I was like, okay, here's my email. Send me an email in 3 months. Let me know how it's going. And so he sent me an email in like 3 months. He ended up losing like 20 pounds. He sent me an email almost like a year later. He lost like 75 pounds. And the reason why was because he put himself into the future. Because we like to think of like right now. Right now, okay, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm okay. Like I'm a little uncomfortable where it is. Like I'm not breathing as well as I should be, but I'm okay. But if you fast forwards and he starts thinking about what his life could be, how his daughter's gonna be affected, how his wife's gonna be affected, and that's a reality that could possibly be a true reality if he doesn't change. Then he was like, I can't let that shit happen. I need to change. But there is also the aspect of like, you can't, like one of my second mentor used to always say this to me. He used to always say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Because what drove me crazy about when I was in Cutco is I'd have these people that had so much potential and they could have been so good, but they just wouldn't show up. They wouldn't do what they needed to do. And it used to drive me crazy because I was like, how do I get them to change? And he was like, Rob, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The only thing that you can do is try your best to help other people. But if somebody doesn't change, you're not the one that's in control of that. And so it's like, if somebody can put themselves into the future, I think that helps a lot. But ultimately, if somebody else wants to change, it's fully up to them and not up to me.
Rob Dial, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
We have stagnating wages, but we have increasing productivity, which means we've actually been doing more. We have these big financial institutions like the Fed and banks that are supposed to help us make more money. In my mind, it's don't trust the big institutions, don't trust Wall Street, don't trust the banks. It comes down to trusting yourself. And I want to break that down. Hey, and welcome back to all those who put in the work. It's Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal podcast. For those who don't just want to be rich, but want to be free and do what it actually takes to get there. Okay, so today, I want to help you get rich through lessons I've learned along my journey. My mission has always been to bring financial freedom to the people who deserve it. Hardworking, high-character individuals who want to build for themselves or their families in a world of burn-it-downers. This episode is for you. By the end of this episode, you will be able to walk away with a framework or game plan to building your wealth today. But first, if you're digging this podcast like a raccoon in a dumpster, don't be stingy. Share it with your friends, your ex, or even your weird neighbor. Let's get this thing spread like peanut butter on a hot summer day, huh? All right, let's jump into the episode. I want to start this podcast not with hard tactics and tools, but something even more important that you might not think about often, your relationship with money. My overall philosophy on money completely changed once I started making it. And then I realized why so many of us live most of our lives never having actually touched money. Let's think about this for just a second here. The average person, so 46% of all Americans, die with less than $10,000 to their name. That is so scary. And I think we feel this all around us, right? I mean, today it's like we have stagnating wages. Our money and dollars hasn't gone up over the last 20 years, but we have increasing productivity, which means we've actually been doing more. We have these big financial institutions like the Fed and banks that are supposed to help us make more money, but somehow we are making less. We have less to spend. We can't afford houses. We can't really afford our mortgage most often. And increasingly, even things like groceries can be hard. We feel that there's like something wrong in society. And a lot of that we could say is the economy and is other people on high. But I think some of this actually comes down to the way we think about money and the relationship we have with it. And so in my mind, it's don't trust the big institutions. Don't trust Wall Street. Don't trust the banks. Don't trust me. It comes down to trusting yourself. And I want to break that down. Let me tell you why I think most people don't make money. Because in order to make money, you actually have to not tell me what you want to do. You have to tell me what you're willing to give up or sacrifice in order to get it. Money is a cruel mistress, and it requires more from you than I think most people are willing to admit. You know, for instance, I think about one of the guys I knew early on in business. And I remember asking him what his goal was for the year. And he wanted to build a $10 million business in the asset management space. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And by comparison, my goal was really small. I was like, I want to make a couple $100,000 this year. Like, I think that would be really, really big. And I'm not sure if I can do it. And that would change my life forever. And, he kind of looked at me and he said, okay, well, how likely do you think you are to make a couple $100,000 this year? And I was like, fuck. I wasn't making anything like that at the time. And so I was like, I don't know, like 5%, 10%. And then he said, imagine that if you don't, I'm going to kill you. You're going to die. Maybe your family dies. Maybe your closest loved ones die. Like, if you don't do this thing, you cease to exist. Now what's your likelihood of success? And I was like, well, it's definitely not fucking 10%. I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to be saying no to some dinners, I'm going to be skipping Netflix. I'm probably going to go after this totally differently. And the reason I bring this up is because I actually think even with all the truth of how hard it is out there to get money, which is real, the hardest thing about getting money is that we don't have a why strong enough to overcome the how that is the truth of how hard making money is. And so when you have a why that is something like, for instance, when I was younger, when I first started really making money, my why was, I want to pour myself into this work. I want to see what is the highest level of execution I can have. I want to see if I stood before God at the end of my days in the next year or two, I could say, I poured it all in. I used every drop of talent that you gave me. And I'm imagining standing in front of God and him going, but really, did you? So for me, that was my why. It was like, I stand before God and I go, I rang it all out. I rang it all out on the table. And because of that, I worked way harder than anybody else. I worked longer than anybody else. I was willing to do what it takes. It's the same thing for you. If you can get deep down to your real, true why, you will become unstoppable and making money will become a byproduct of it. And the last example I'll have of this is we have a lot of employees and, so across all of our businesses, hundreds, and then the underlying businesses, thousands. And, even in the main business, I focus on this one, which is contrarian thinking. We have like 30 employees, let's say. And I can often tell who really is going to make a ton of money, if that's what matters to them, but who's going to make a ton of money by this one thing. When I ask them, why do you do what you do every day? And if they tell me, well, I'm like trying to figure it out, I don't really know. I say, well, why, if you could make a decision between putting in an extra hour or two at work or going to do something else, why would you do one thing versus the other? The more clear your answer is to that question, the bigger your bank account will be. So let me give you an example of a good answer and a bad answer. And then I think you could put in the comments or tag me in your Instagram stories how your chart shakes out so I can give you feedback live. So on the left-hand side, a good answer sounds like something like this. I just got married. I want to buy a house for me and my wife. I want to be a provider for her. Like, it is so important to me that she sees me as somebody who can take care of her. And so my goal is to go above and beyond, and my why is my wife. Okay, strong. Let me tell you what a bad why sounds like. Well, like I kind of want this because I think that's like market rate for my talents. And, I think going forward, like I work really hard and so I should get this. I should be able to make this. I mean, I'm good at my job. I work really hard. So that's why I want it. Your life will change the second that you realize money is attracted to strong stories and strong whys and not attracted to loose probabilities and maybes. The reason most people don't reach financial freedom is they don't have a why strong enough to compel any how. And then the second reason is they don't actually speak the language of money. And so, how can you expect to become fluent, aka have money all around you, have massive abundance of money, if you don't actually even speak the language at all? That would be ridiculous if you were like, hey, I want to go become fluent in Spanish. Are you practicing? Do you know the language? Are you talking about it frequently? Oh, you're not? Well, you're probably not going to become fluent. That makes sense to me. And it's the same thing with money, which is fascinating, right? Why did nobody ever tell us that? Like, why did they tell us how to save dollars and cents? Why did they tell us how to maybe fill out a 401k? But nobody taught us the language of money. Oh, they crammed calculus and amoebas down our throat, but nothing about the one thing that will give you more freedom than anything else in the world, money. And so when I realized this, I thought, okay, I wonder how big this language is. When you think about like learning a language, you're like, oh, German, that seems tough. Like, they say the German's really hard to understand. But Chinese, that's probably totally tougher. There's like levels to the game of languages, right? And I wanted to understand how big this language of money was. Like, how much studying do we have to do to become fluent in it, to make more of it? And what I realized pretty quickly is the language is shallow, which means there's not many levels to the game of you becoming at least financially free. Now, you becoming the master, the top 1%, the 10%, a billionaire, that language is deep. That is Mandarin. But in order for you to start making a couple $100,000 a year, to provide for your family, to have a house for yourself, to build a nice little business, to get ownership, to decrease risk, the language is not that deep. And so if you want to become really, really rich, you need to learn the language of money. And there's many ways you do this. One of the ways that I think is strongest is you learn deal making. That's why I teach people negotiations and business buying. And the reason I do is because deal making is really just saying, can I transfer dollars and cents from me to you or you to me? So all you're doing is it's your exchange. So when you think about speaking a language, what do? You want to go talk to another person often, right? In order for you to practice your language. That is the same thing with deal making. So I think one of the smartest spots to start with learning the language of money is actually learning the language of deals, because then you get to see in practice the words that you would just learn in theory. You know how in America, for instance, most of us in America, we were not taught Spanish by speaking. We're on a little, we had our workbooks, we filled out Spanish cards. And for that reason, Americans by and large are not really proficient in Spanish at all. It's why there's like sort of memes about gringos and how we pronounce things. The difference between you becoming fluent in money and you knowing a few things about money is use. Is do you actually use it and engage with it? And so if I was you, I would be playing the game of becoming a deal maker. I would take courses on how do I do deals. I would start negotiating in real life. And that will be the difference between the many who think they know about money and the few who actually play with money, speak the language, and communicate fluently. One of the ways that you make more money is you avoid losing money and bad mistakes. This is called inversion thinking, and it is a principle that is used by some of the richest investors in the world. So let me break it down for you here. Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, was very famous for saying, instead of thinking about what I do want, can I think about what I do not want? I will get more clearly to my wants if I understand very clearly my do not desires, the things that are bad for me. And so when it comes to thinking about making money and when it comes to think about growth, I would play inversion thinking. So it would go something like this. I do not want to be poor, right? Well, what is poor? Well, I do not want to make less than $20,000 a year because I don't think I can live off of that. I do not want to have to work 70 hours a week in order to make 50,000 only. I would work maybe 70 hours a week if I could make $300,000 a year. I do not want to have to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. I do not want to have to get into debt and take on big risk to make money. So I want you to create a list of all the things you do not want. Then you can juxtapose that against the things that you do want, which is mirrored thinking. I want to make X amount of money. And if one of your do not wants is I don't want to work 70 hours a week, well, then you've got to decide which one wins the seesaw contest. Which one will you put at the top of the seesaw as your top priority? Allow the other to slide down lower because you know if you want this X thing at the top, sometimes some of your other desires have to go by the wayside. This is called inversion thinking, and it'll change the way you think about money. So I talk a lot about business buying, and I get a lot of questions about it. One of the most common ones is, where do you find a business to buy? My answer is sad, because the worst deals are oversaturated marketplace sites, but the best deals are off-market or curated deals. Either way, finding a business to buy usually kind of sucks. I think it should suck less, actually. So that's why we invested millions in this company. It's called BizScout, a business buying marketplace full of the best deals for both on and off market businesses. It's brand new, it's built different, and we've got verified buyers. So what does that mean? That means the best sellers that are actually interested in listing will get responses. We've got scout sites, aka at a glance, what's the quick analysis of this deal? We've got off-market data, so you can get all the info you need to do direct outreach efficiently. We've got embedded lending, so you can get your own financing for the business right where you buy it. BizScout is brand new, so go check it out because we're going to be adding so many features over the coming years. And I hope that in the future with you guys and your feedback, we change the face of Main Street buying and selling and turn a few thousand more people into owners while we do it. Because you're a Big Deal listener, you actually get some goodies. So go to the link in the show notes if you want to see BizScout and if you want to think about buying or selling a small business. Let's talk about the Pareto principle, otherwise known as the 80-20 rule, which basically means in life there's this fascinating phenomenon that is true in almost all aspects of nature. 20% of the actions drive 80% of the results. It originally started, interestingly enough, in peas. So they were looking at pea plants, you know, the little green things you chop. And in the pea plants, they found that the pods, which the peas come into, about 20% of the pods held 80% of the peas. They realized this and thought, well, that's interesting. I thought there would be what's called an even distribution. I thought there'd just be like peas in all the pods, right? And it would be evenly distributed. Well, it turns out nature is not like that. This is one of those weird glitches, maybe that shows we're in the matrix. And it turns out in life, most of this is true too. It is a very key thing to know if you want to build a business or become more wealthy. Here's how you break it down in business. If I know that 80% of my results, the things I want, will be driven only by 20% of the things I do, it's probably really important that I focus on that top 20% and get rid of the rest. In my teams, I would ask the question of, okay, what are you doing right now? Is this in your 20%? Meaning, is it one of the top things that you're focusing on consistently that will drive the most results? Another way to talk about this is what Peter Thiel famously characterized as the one thing. The one thing that if you do, everything else becomes irrelevant. When you're thinking about this for making money yourself, and it might go something like this. If I work longer hours, keep looking for a job that has higher pay, consistently try to increase my skill stack. Well, those 3 things make me more money. And you want to ask yourself the likelihood. You could write down a list of all your actions you could take and then say which of those probably won't. If I watch a ton of YouTube videos on every different subject, will that help my 20%? Probably not. If I obsess on 1 or 2 things deeply, will that help me make more money? Probably so. If I go out and spend time with my friends during the week and then I'm tired for the next day, is that going to help my results? No. In life, I think we often have a massive to-do list of actions and we get a dopamine reaction every time we check something off the list. This is measurable and true. What does that mean? It means that our little lizard brain cannot tell the difference between checking off did I get up at 5:45 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. off the list as different from, did I close a $10,000 client today? Literally, our little lizard brains can't tell the difference between the two. So we fill up our days with a bunch of tasks that actually do not matter at all because they are easy. It is why Mark Twain famously said, if you need to eat a frog, eat it first thing in the morning. And if you have to eat 2, eat the big one first. He's basically saying choose the hardest, the meatiest, the most impactful task you can to execute first. 1, because our brain can't tell the difference between the 2, so it will trick you into thinking you've done a lot when you've just been busy, not productive. Then lastly, because if you do the hard things first, you have a lot of built up willpower at the beginning of the day. Arguably, it's one of the times of the day where you are the least fatigued. You have the most stamina. Throughout the day, from a series of things often attributed to decision fatigue, which is like, I made so many decisions during the day, I can't make any more. My brain, my willpower goes down. The later on you get in the day, the more likely you are to not be able to make the hard decision. So obsess on the 80-20 rule. What is the 20% that will drive 80% of my result? What are the hard things I can do first while I still have a lot of willpower? What things am I just doing because I want to feel good instead of be productive? There's a theory called Occam's razor, which is a framework that's really helpful in figuring out how do I make more money without making this too overly complex. So Occam's razor basically says this: the simplest explanation is usually the best explanation. So this is often a way to debunk conspiracy theorists. It's like, did the entire government architecture all come together in order to create a massive X that will destroy the world? And then you meet a bunch of government employees, you're like, those fuckers, they could barely tie their shoelaces. They're not orchestrating a world takeover, right? What's the simpler explanation? Well, a bunch of these guys who can't tie shoelaces basically couldn't fix anything, created this huge byproduct, and now we're stuck with this mess. That's a lot simpler than the coordination and the pins all pulled together on the wall to create lizard people. Probably unlikely. I don't know, maybe. Now, Occam's razor is really useful when you're thinking about making money because one of the biggest reasons we don't get rich is we overcomplicate things, and overcomplicating leads to what? Procrastination. When you're like, I don't know what to do, what do? You wait. When you know what to do, it's much easier to go take the next steps. So how I think about this in life is back in the day, I was in a job that I didn't really like, and I couldn't figure out how to get promoted. When I am telling you guys, I applied for like 6 open roles. I put together 3 different business plans for open roles. I hit all of my metrics consistently at the company. I felt like I was doing everything, and I was getting passed up for the job, passed up for the job, passed up for the job. And I felt pretty hopeless. And I went and talked to my boss and had the tough conversation. I was like, man, I've done all these things. I still don't feel like I'm progressing. What else could I do? What else could I show you to show you that I'm ready for this next stage? And his answer was basically, wait, something will come up. You just wait. And in the meantime, you have to compete against these other people. And if you're better, you'll win. I didn't like that answer. And I could have just waited for something to eventually come up. And I could have taken his sort of touchy-feely esoteric answer. But instead I was like, you know what? I can't find the answer here. It's too complicated. So what will I do instead? Let me apply the same practice I was doing internally, and I'm just going to apply it externally. I think the actions that I was taking were right. So let me just get with a recruiter, and I'm going to show them all of this stuff, and I'm going to apply for 10 external jobs. And if I couldn't get the internal jobs, let's see how many of the external jobs I might get. And what do you think happened? I got a new job. and an ability to make more money because I couldn't do it internally. That was too complicated. And so oftentimes if we're running against a wall, there's a great saying, which is it's sort of business 101. I remember learning it back in Georgetown when I was getting my MBA. One of my favorite teachers there had multiple exits of varying size software businesses and came to teach for us as a visiting professor. And he said something that stuck with me. He said, when it's easy, do more. When it's hard, do something totally different. And I loved this principle. Easy, run, keep going, apply pressure. When it's hard, stop, think, change your frame. And so Occam's razor will allow you to look at what's happening that seems hard in front of you and say, what if this was easy? What if this was easy? Another thing that I apply to my team often is I'll say that. I'll say, okay, we have a goal of 1 million subscribers on an email list. And the team will be like, oh, that feels so big. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't think we can get there. And I'll ask them one question. What if it was easy? What would that look like? Instead of you immediately going to tackle the problem from a fear frame, can you tackle it from an abundance frame? If it was easy, how could we do this? And then they started coming up with incredible ideas. It was like, well, why don't we do some newsletter swaps with your big friends? Like, I don't know how to create content that gets 10,000 subscribers, but I bet if you talk to some of your other big newsletter fans or friends and you guys switch newsletters, I bet we could get it. So ask yourself, what if it was easy? Where is the easy button in your life? Where is the person you can talk to directly who already is looking for you as an employee that you can talk to? And maybe they'll hire you. Where is the investor who you don't even realize it, but he's right in front of your face, ready to give you money? There is a magical word in finance called compounding, which sounds super boring, but often the boring is where all the money is made. What does compounding mean? It is a thing that allows you, if you invest a little bit all throughout your career and life in the stock market, by the time you retire, you can become a millionaire. There's many different frameworks you can use to see these. There are projections and models that will show you if I put in $10 today and I continue to put in $1, like $365 for the rest of my career, that I will have somehow magically hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of my retirement. The way that we do this is something called compounding, which basically means that 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 does not actually equal the numerical amount. When you compound, 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2. Oftentimes it equals 3, 5, 7, 10, 12. Now, why? If you think about it this way, 1% growth every single day is 37x growth in 1 year. So we know this with money. You can literally do a mathematical framework to show if you grow 1% every year, and then the thing that is growing next continues to grow 1%, then the next 1% continues to grow 1%, you compound. It's like this stacked amount of dirt on top of it. What's fascinating is I don't think a lot of people think about this in their skill set with money. So one of the best ways to make money is to increase the value of the skills that you have. A hard truth is if you don't like your bank account is a reflection of how valuable you are currently in your skill set. Now, you might say, Codie, I'm a teacher. This is so rude. How could you say something like that? And I would say, easy. My mom was a 30-year special education teacher. I totally understand that there are some careers that have limits on how much you can make. But guess what we don't have in this country anymore? We don't have mandated continual employment in any profession. What we do have is trade-offs, that seesaw that I was talking about. So if you're a teacher right now and you only make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, what benefits do you have that can allow you to compound 1% every day outside of your salary? So my mom, for instance, during the summers would get another job. And so during the summer months, when she was completely off, she would help my father in real estate until my father and her in real estate ended up building a big company. She helped me in one of my businesses during those times off, and her skill set started to compound. And so I would ask yourself, do you have a practice where every single day you are trying to become a little bit better of a human? This day and age, there's a lot of comments out there that are like, you're perfect the way you are. You don't have to do anything else. You're enough. That's true. You as a human being were created perfectly, in my opinion, in the image of God. You yourself right now are perfect. There's nothing you can do in the material plane that's going to make you quote unquote better as a soul. However, if you have a goal that is financial freedom and you are not reaching that goal, you are not perfect. You haven't done what it takes. You might have done what you wanted, but not what is required. That is just honesty and reality. And somebody needs to tell you the harsh facts on that. So I have a process every single day where I work to get 1% better. And each year that process changes. So this year I have the 3 B's, which is business, book, baby. I want to have a baby this year. I want to launch a best-selling book, and I want to grow this particular business to its next milestone. So because I have those three things, I go back to them constantly. And any action I take, I go, is it helping one of those three things? So this year with baby, I'm really getting my health under control. So every single day, I'm making sure that I have a checklist to get 1% better. That might be, am I working out? Am I making sure to go see my physical therapist? Am I doing some cleanses that I need to do? Turns out there's lots of bacteria and stuff. Women are having a harder time getting pregnant. I'm older, so it's harder getting pregnant too. So the baby is front and center for me. I don't sacrifice for that. Second is book, at which point I know every single day I want to take one action that I think is meaningful, going back to Pareto's principle, one action that I think is meaningful in progressing the book. So that might be today, for instance, this morning, I got up really early and I created 3 pieces of content that I think are really good to express why this book is so amazing and everybody should buy Main Street Millionaire. I created those 3 pieces of content and I got it to the team. So I'm like, okay, I did 1% more today. And then when it comes to business, it's not so much my actions I take every day in business. I realized I need to be a better leader. If I want my business to get to the next level, we're so big now, it's not the Codie show anymore. If it's just me making myself individually better and doing tasks, I'll never hit $1 billion business, which is what I want to hit. And so I am obsessing 1% every day on, am I learning about leadership? Because the real way to make a ton of money is to get other people to help you do it. That's one of the biggest secrets out there. And so every day I'm reading a book on leadership or I'm listening to a podcast, and then not just listening to it, but applying it, which is what I hope you do with this podcast too. I hope you sit down and go, okay, all these things Codie listened to, here are the 3 things I took away that I'm going to do right now. And that will change your life if you take this magic word of 1% better every day, compounding, and apply it to your life. Also, one of the biggest hacks out there when it comes to making money, categorically, number 1 thing I think you can do to make more money today is pre-order the Main Street Millionaire book. It's like $30. It's the cheapest thing we have ever created to help people learn about making money. And I think it will have the highest return on investment that you can have. So if you haven't already pre-ordered it, I would highly recommend it. You don't hear me pushing a lot of our stuff on our channels. This, my friends, is worth every single penny. So let's say right now you have $0. You have nothing. You are broke. You're listening to this going, 1% better of 0 is still 0. If that's you right now today, there are 2 things I want you to think about. One is every single human has some type of capital. Capital is also a word often that's interchangeable with money, right? Might say, I'm raising capital. What do they mean? I'm raising money. They just want to sound fancy about it. You right now may be broke monetarily. You are not broke from a capital perspective. What do I mean by that? If you have no money, you have very little to lose. You haven't maybe built up a big business, which means you don't have a ton of demands on your time, potentially. So one type of capital that you have is that you're more willing to take risk. Lean into risk then. If you are broke today, don't play it safe. Don't go be a grocery store clerk. Go do everything humanly possible to get in with a startup that you think is going to grow rapidly, take a much lower wage to do whatever grunt work is required, and try to grow inside of a risky business. If right now you can't take a ton of risk, but you have more time, well, time is an incredible form of capital, which means that you right now can help somebody else who already has money and resources achieve what they want faster. So where can you go out and apply your idea of time? So that might look like reaching out to somebody like me and saying, hey, I don't have the skill set you need yet, but I have this one unique skill set. Can I come work for you for free? Can I go work at a company right now for very little capital? Or it might say, I have a ton of time. I'm really good at marketing. I'm going to go find somebody to partner with to market their product on Etsy. I'm going to market the shit out of it. I'm going to spend a ton of time on it. And until I figure out how to monetize properly, I'm going to pour the amount of capital I have into it, just like dollars. I'm going to pour capital into it and hope the capital comes back to me. The other thing that you might have is expertise or experience. So let's say you are a teacher, maybe you're a professor, or maybe you are really good at social media. Do you have an expertise that is really useful to somebody else? You just haven't figured out one leg of the stool, which is how to make money yet. Well, if you're great at social media, go partner up with some businesses that are not great at social media and say, I want a percentage of whatever income and revenue I drive you from social media today. I won't take anything that you are already making. It's only net new business.
That is how, if you are broke, you start to focus on, okay, do I have time? Can I take risk? Do I have expertise and experience? Do I have network? So for instance, maybe you have no money, but for some reason you work at a golf country club and you're the caddy, but all those motherfuckers are rich. Could you make introductions between them in order for you to be a connector? There's connections as the ability. That's how you make money if you have none. Now here's the cold, hard truth. There's a 5-step process to making money. And in the beginning, it's going to be very different for you. First, you have to work harder than you think. Harder means longer hours. Harder means more intense application. Harder means incredibly focused. You're not fucking around. You're not just staying in the office a long time. You're obsessed with learning. 2, you're going to have to work longer than you think. So you can't just work hard, but you are going to have to take more time doing this than seems reasonable for most people. Why do you think so many people who are investment bankers, that's what I did, I was in banking and asset management back in the day. Why do you think so many of us make money today? It's because we normalized 70-hour work days with incredible amounts of output required. It sucks. I remember doing it, but you are much more likely to win if you are willing to do that. Third, you've got to value your skill stack and then grow the value of your skill stack. If right now your only value is that you are a grocery store clerk, I love you. I was a waiter for many years. I've done all level of jobs. That is not a high value skill stack. You need to have a number one priority of not just working harder and longer, but increasing your skill stack value. Because what? You're going to work harder and longer as a grocery store clerk? That's not going to be enough for you to make your hundreds of thousands or millions. But if you work harder and longer than any other grocery store clerk, plus you increase your skill stack from executing the priorities, maybe creating systems and processes around it, maybe doing better in customer service than anybody else, maybe doing additional jobs, maybe learning about leadership, then your skill stack can increase in value and you can go up the chain. 4 is take more risk than seems reasonable. Most people don't succeed because they might work hard hours, they might work long hours, they might have a skill set that's valuable, which would be something like, let's say, a pipe welder. That's a very valuable skill set, but they never take risk. They work for somebody else. They never ask for ownership. They never put skin in the game themselves. They never invest anywhere else. And so even with these 3 without risk, you'll never make a ton of money. And then lastly is you have to have an ability to connect other humans. In this society today, your network is not necessarily your net worth, but it will severely limit your ability to win. And so if you don't have anybody who's winning around you, if you don't know who to go to when you have difficult problems, if you're not valuable enough to other people for them to want to be valuable enough back to you, then you're much less likely to win. So we got hard work, long work, a valuable skill set, taking risk, and building up a network. If you have those 5 things, even if you are broke today, you can become unbroke. Now let me do inversion thinking. What don't we have here? We don't have trust funds. We don't have rich husbands or wives. We don't have crazy startup ideas that are brilliant. We don't have investors with a ton of capital for us. We don't have Harvard or Stanford MBAs. We have 5 things that are completely in your control, and that is the truth. So I've given you a set of skills that you can use to grow your wealth that have been tried and true and tested from me and thousands of other people. We steal their homework. We use their data. But a lot of times at this point, people will say, there's something else holding me back. I'm applying these skills. I'm applying these processes and frameworks, but my friends and family kind of don't agree with what I'm doing. That, they want to hang out, but they don't actually want to get better. They loved the old version of me. They're not loving the new version of me. And so the last piece of advice I'll have for you is that I don't ever believe any one of us is better than another human. I don't believe that. I think that if I had your experiences and your background, I would probably be you. That if you had my experiences and background, you would probably be me. That we're like this amalgamation of experiences that become who we are today. Sure, I work hard and I give myself some credit, but for the most part, I think we are a product of what's happening in the world around us. That said, if you do not change your surroundings, it's really hard to become changed. If you want to be something different, you got to go somewhere different. If you want to achieve really high level things, you have to be around others who have already achieved those things. So I often talk about this idea of you need to leave your hometown to grow. We did this study, and we surveyed thousands of people on Twitter and on Instagram. And we ask, have any of you never left your hometown for college, work, anything for longer than 6 months and become very monetarily successful? Define monetarily successful. Multiple millions of dollars in net worth. Has anybody done that? We found 2. I have one friend who has become that. Nathan Barry created a company called ConvertKit, never left his hometown in Iowa, never went to school outside of Iowa, built his business in Iowa, is worth millions. But what did we find everywhere else? That almost everyone else had at some point at least left for college, at least left for 6 months. And I think this is really important because it allows you to become a brand new human and to see that it's possible to change who you are, to become something new, where nobody else around you is anchoring you to the human that you are. Have you guys ever gone home, like for Christmas or the holidays, for instance? When I go home to Phoenix for Thanksgiving or Christmas, there are like things that my friends do there from high school. You know, everybody goes to this one dive bar or 2 dive bars. One's called Patty's and the other one's called the Roadhouse. They look the same. They haven't changed since I went to high school there years ago. Kind of the same characters are there every time. You know, there's Ted, I'm making up names. There's Ted, who's like always a little drunk. You know, there's like Ryan, who like used to be really hot back in the day in high school, now doesn't look so great, also kind of drunk every time you see him. There's like the few that like keep dating each other somehow, like even all these years later. You know, it's like this record on repeat, right? And so for years I used to go back and it's fun, right? Like I love a lot of those people. And you go and you have nostalgia and you talk to them about old times and that's lovely. But then you kind of look around and you're like, ooh, have we moved? Have we really made change in our life? Maybe they don't want to make change, which is good for them. They're probably happier than I am in many aspects. But for me, as a person who wants to do something completely unreasonable, who wants to have complete financial freedom, who wants to build something giant, who wants money to become so abundant it becomes meaningless, where I can help so many other people become financially free that it's not even about me anymore. It's about like, how can I impact millions? Well, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do it from Patty's. I'm not going to do it from the dive bar. I'm not going to be able to do it being the person that they all remember. And I see it there sometimes. They're like, oh, remember when you did this? And I'm like, not really. That's not me anymore. You know, I'm not that same human. And it is perfectly okay for you to be a completely different human in 1 year from now than you are today. So never be afraid to leave your hometown to grow. Thanks for being builders in a world of consumers. I see you guys. You are a big deal to me. We noticed this wild thing, which is thousands of you watch the videos and haven't subscribed to get the updates yet. I want to push upon you that if you want to make your habits become realities, if you want to make real money, you should make sure that you're making it easy on yourself. Click the subscribe button so it's the thing in front of your face constantly, so that every time we come out with a new podcast that's about money and making your life better and different, you're one of the first people that gets it. This is how you make sure you apply Pareto's principle of not spending the time on the little checklist things, but instead making sure you narrow your focus. So subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and I'll catch you again next week.